Alright guys, before we move on, if you want to practice these questions using artificial intelligence and see what mistakes you're making, what score you are likely to get in the test, I have got a great news for you. You can practice all these questions with AI on our app, LAPT Exam Practice app, which is available on iOS and Android as well. Plus, if you want to take a full scored mock test, one free full scored mock test is available in the app, or you can register on languageacademy.com.au. The scorecard you will get with the mock test will be as similar as what you will get in the actual test, and which will make it very clear what score you are likely to get. I'll highly recommend each and every one of you to take that mock test, see what mistakes you're making, how to improve, and what other things you need to work on. Lastly, we have got our branches in Australia and in India, and we do provide online classes. If you need any help, do contact us on the numbers below. Now you can continue with the video.
Dark matter is an elusive substance that provides the skeleton for what cosmologists call the cosmic web, the large-scale structure of the universe that, due to its gravitational influence, dictates the motion of galaxies and other cosmic material. However, the distribution of local dark matter is currently unknown because it cannot be measured directly. Currently, in South Australia, the majority of people who have a positive COVID-19 test result will stay in the community, in their home, or in supervised or supported care. A team of health professionals will carry out an assessment and ask you a series of questions, including identifying your symptoms, your medical history, and if you can safely isolate away from others. To overcome procrastination, you need to have an understanding of the reasons why you procrastinate and the function procrastination serves in your life. You can't come up with an effective solution if you don't really understand the root of the problem. As with most problems, awareness and self-knowledge are the keys to figuring out how to stop procrastinating. Enthusiasm seeks to contribute to a culturally and historically nuanced understanding of how emotions secure and ratify the truth of convictions. More than just pure affective intensity, enthusiasm is about something, a certainty, clarity, or truth. Enthusiasm takes its starting point in religion, the social arena in which the concept was first debated and to which the term still gestures. Connective tissue cells provide structural strength to the body and also defend against foreign invaders like bacteria. Two types of cells are native to connective tissue. Other cells migrate into connective tissue from the bloodstream to fight diseases. Special types of connective tissue are designed to be stronger and more rigid than most connective tissues. Identification and characterization of microorganisms is a key part of the management of food safety and quality, tracing contaminants and troubleshooting problems such as spoilage. Knowing how to identify bacteria or other unknown microorganisms that you have encountered can help to assess whether it poses a safety concern or is likely to be heat resistant, for example.
I found a large rock and I broke through the basement window. I found a large rock and I broke through the basement window. Here is only one example, but there are lots of others. Here is only one example, but there are lots of others. The pollution level in New Delhi has reached an alarming level. The pollution level in New Delhi has reached an alarming level. Smoke from these contributed a great deal to the air pollution. Smoke from these contributed a great deal to the air pollution. The professor will talk about the summary in the lecture. The professor will talk about the summary in the lecture. Quality of life is an important measure on which the cities are ranked. Quality of life is an important measure on which the cities are ranked. This article covers whom, where and when of the conflict. This article covers whom, where and when of the conflict. Of all the heating and cooling options, central heating is the best. Of all the heating and cooling options, central heating is the best. I need more quotations to back up my argument. I need more quotations to back up my argument.
You need to finish the reporting of the chapter before going to the field trip. You need to finish the reporting of the chapter before going to the field trip.
The first thing I want to argue is that the former civilization is running into pretty profound crisis in its relationships to the rest of nature, which we do and what we have depended on for survival and for flourishing. And this is the most widely and well recognized in relation to climate change, CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. But I want to argue the certain dangers in the way that has been presented as the central question that we have to address. Because if it is interlocked with a number of other crises, that is most noticeably as the crisis in access to fresh water, crisis in access to food, biodiversity loss on a huge scale, and associated problems of human inequality, not just in a common world, but actually in the kinds of environmental resources and pleasures that I can enjoy. So, all those together have to be looked at an interconnected set of really deep, profound crises.
In our survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable as many of the IT issues are extremely complex and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved. And there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention: sales, marketing, and business development on the one hand, and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents.
Whose job is making and repairing wooden objects and structures? Whose job is making and repairing wooden objects and structures? Carpenter. What do you call the substances used to speed up a chemical reaction? What do you call the substances used to speed up a chemical reaction? Catalyst. What are the organs of the body that we can breathe with? Lungs or noses? What are the organs of the body that we can breathe with? Lungs or noses? What is the legal document protecting someone's intellectual property? What is the legal document protecting someone's intellectual property? Patent. What do meter and millimeter measure? Weight or length? What do meter and millimeter measure? Weight or length? Length. A coworker in the same institution is a colleague or a peer. A coworker in the same institution is a colleague or a peer. Colleague.
I strongly believe animal testing should be banned. It is cruel and causes suffering to innocent animals. Millions of animals are used in labs each year for experiments in cosmetics, medicines, and chemicals. Today, we have alternatives like computer models, cell cultures, and advanced simulations. These methods are more humane and often more reliable than animal tests.
I understand the concern, but animal testing has played a big role in medical progress. Many life-saving vaccines and treatments were developed after being tested on animals. Without this, we might not have cures for diseases. Until alternatives are fully reliable, banning animal testing may slow down research.
Maybe the answer lies in regulation rather than a full ban. Testing for cosmetics, fashion, and unnecessary products should stop completely, but medical research can continue with strict rules. At the same time, more funding should go into developing and promoting non-animal methods.
That's fair. But we must also remember animals cannot give consent. Using them for human benefit is morally wrong. Companies should be forced to shift to cruelty-free practices. Consumers can also help by buying products that are not tested on animals.
I agree ethics matter, but what if skipping animal tests leads to unsafe medicines? Human lives are at risk too. Maybe we need a gradual phase-out where we replace animals step by step as alternatives become advanced enough.
Yes, and education is key. If scientists, companies, and the public support cruelty-free research, change will happen faster. Governments should give incentives for innovation in alternatives and punish unnecessary animal testing.
So, to conclude, animal testing should definitely be reduced and replaced. Where it is unavoidable, it must follow strict ethical standards until alternatives are ready.
Agreed. The future should aim for zero animal testing, but it must be done responsibly.
Exactly. Progress and compassion should go together.
I believe voting should be compulsory. Democracy works best when everyone participates. Many people avoid voting due to laziness or lack of interest, but every vote counts. If voting is mandatory, politicians will represent the entire population, not just a small group of active voters.
Forcing people to vote is not a good idea. Freedom means having the right to choose, and that includes the right not to vote. Some people are not informed about issues and may vote randomly. That could harm the quality of democracy, instead of improving it.
Maybe a middle way is better. Instead of forcing, governments can encourage voting through awareness campaigns, rewards, and easy access. For example, making voting days holidays, offering digital voting, or giving small benefits for participation. This way, more people will vote willingly.
Compulsory voting already works in some countries, like Australia. It improves turnout and makes leaders more accountable. When citizens know they must vote, they take politics more seriously. It also reduces the influence of money in advertisements because everyone's voice matters.
But it also creates problems. Many people might cast blank or spoiled votes just to avoid fines. That increases costs without improving democracy. Instead, we should focus on educating citizens so that they vote wisely, not just because they are forced to.
Education is definitely important. Schools and colleges should teach young people about civic responsibility. Social media campaigns can also remind people that voting is a duty as well as a right. The goal should be informed participation.
Another advantage is equality. When all groups, including the poor and marginalized, are required to vote, policies will reflect their needs. Compulsory voting ensures fairness and reduces dominance of elite groups.
Still, enforcement may be difficult. In rural areas or for people with health issues, reaching polling stations is hard. Instead of punishing them, the system should make voting accessible everywhere, maybe even from home.
So the conclusion is that compulsory voting has benefits, but it should be combined with awareness, accessibility, and civic education. A democracy is strongest when citizens participate willingly and responsibly.
You're having trouble connecting to Wi-Fi in the college library and cannot do your assignments. You go to the tech support desk. What do you say to describe your issue and ask for help getting connected?
You forgot your password for an important account and cannot log in. You contact the service desk for assistance. What do you say to explain your problem and ask for a way to reset your password?
the distinction between pyramid schemes and legitimate multi-level marketing can be particularly hazy. In theory, the difference is that the members of the multi-level marketing companies primarily earn compensation from selling a particular product or a service to retail customers, while pyramid schemes primarily compensate members for recruitment of new sellers. In practice, though, many multi-level marketing companies make it all but impossible for members to profit purely through sales. And many pyramid schemes, like Emma Nutrition, disguise themselves as legal multi-level marketing businesses, using a product or service to hide the pay-and-recruit structure. Many pyramid schemes also capitalize on already existing trust within churches, immigrant communities, or other tightly knit groups. The first few members are encouraged to report a good experience before they actually start making a profit. Others in their network follow their example, and the schemes balloon in size before it comes clear that most members aren't actually profiting. Often, the victims are embarrassed into silence. Pyramid schemes entice people with the promise of opportunity and empowerment. So, when members don't end up making money, they can blame themselves rather than the scheme, thinking they weren't tenacious enough to earn the returns promised. Some victims keep trying, investing in multiple schemes, and losing money each time.
The heyday of the English landscape garden was the 18th century, and it stood for many things: the appreciation of natural beauty, of course, but also the idea of a civilized life, good taste, one's personal philosophy, and one's social status. Gardens also, though it is hard for us to credit, became expressions of their owners' political affiliations. Until the picturesque style emerged as part and parcel of the Romantic movement, gardens had been strictly formal, laid out with mathematical precision following the Italian and French examples. There then came a backlash against this rigid formality, led by, among others, the poet Alexander Pope. Pope and his allies argued for a more natural nature. Lord Burlington was a major figure in the landscape garden movement, and he was famously influenced by his love of the Italian architect, Andrea Palladio, along with the picturesque or romanticized landscapes of Italian classical painting. With these in mind, he scattered his gardens and parks with classical Greek and Roman temples and statues. In other words, he wanted to make the garden look like those paintings.
Readjusting to life in your own country after living abroad for some time is a little like recovering from jet lag after a long flight across several time zones. It takes time. And research indicates that after 9 years living in a foreign country you never really do readjust. Of course, things have changed, governments have come and gone, what you knew as countryside has become a suburb, new technologies have changed the way people go about their daily lives, and so on. These changes may well have been taking place in your adopted country, but they were happening while you were there, so you could adapt as you went along. Those are nor the main difficulties, however. It is in the smaller, everyday things that you might experience what is known as culture shock, although it's not really a shock. But puzzling all the same. For example, the precise way to behave at a supermarket checkout may have changed. And in ordinary conversation, the frames of reference have changed, and quite often you find that you don't really know what people are talking about, even though they are speaking your native tongue.
A report from the Bank of England, meanwhile, concluded that mortgage securities, which have been at the heart of the financial troubles, probably have fallen too far. The central bank said prices of such securities should improve gradually in the coming months. Financial stocks in the broader market surged on Thursday as the dollar strengthened and oil prices fell for the third day in a row. The Standard & Poor's 500 stock index closed up 1.7% to 1,409.34 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average notched a 189.87 point gain to 13,010, and the Nasdaq Composite jumped 2.8%. Another day or two like that and those market benchmarks will be in the black for the year.
When the time comes, its peers should follow suit. Of these, the European Central Bank faces the trickiest challenge, because it has acted as, in effect, the backstop to Eurozone bond markets, a mechanism that otherwise the currency bloc still lacks. But the main safety valve lies elsewhere, with banks and investors. Bitter experience has shown that debt-funded assets can magnify losses, causing financial crises. For this reason, banks must be able to withstand any reversal of today's high asset prices and low defaults. That means raising bank capital in places where it is too low, especially the Eurozone, and not backsliding on strenuous stress tests as America's Treasury proposes.
Most observers tend to extrapolate current trends and assume that what we see now will continue moving in the same direction, ever larger cities, etc. I don't see it that way. The global energy predicament now gathering around us will synergize with climate change to produce a very different outcome. I think we'll eventually see a reversal of the 200-year-long cycle of people moving from farms and small towns to big cities. Food production is going to be a big problem when oil and gas-based agriculture is no longer possible, and we will have to re-establish a more meaningful relationship between urban places and a more productive agricultural hinterland. Our megacities will contract substantially. If you're like most parents, you remember sending your kindergartner off to school with a backpack bigger than they were. While your child may be able to shoulder it, students are now weighed down more than ever by these cumbersome packs. Which is why, say experts, more kids than ever before are complaining about back and neck pain. With school starting up again, a likely reason for the complaints is the heavy load they're carrying, and we're not talking about classes, with everything from textbooks to laptops to musical instruments crammed inside. Consider this. The Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission calculated that carrying a 12-pound backpack to and from school and lifting it 10 times a day for an entire school year puts a cumulative load on youngsters' bodies of 21,600 pounds, the New York Times reported, or the equivalent of 6 mid-sized cars.
Virtual reality (VR) is revolutionizing education by offering immersive learning environments that enhance engagement and comprehension. Students can now step into ancient civilizations, conduct virtual chemistry experiments, or explore the human body at the molecular level, all within a simulated environment. Such experiential learning promotes deeper understanding and helps bridge the gap between theory and practice. However, the adoption of VR in schools and universities remains limited due to financial constraints, inadequate infrastructure, and insufficient teacher training. Some educators worry that over-reliance on technology could diminish interpersonal interaction and critical thinking. Nonetheless, when integrated thoughtfully, VR can complement traditional methods rather than replace them. It encourages curiosity, supports diverse learning styles, and fosters creativity. As hardware becomes more affordable and software more accessible, VR is poised to become a vital tool in modern education, making complex ideas tangible and learning more interactive than ever before.
How would you define reasonable as it is used in law? For example, you are allowed to use reasonable force when defending yourself. It seems to depend on how serious the situation was, whether it was possible to resolve it by peaceful means, whether you were ready to try those means, and, finally, the relative strengths of those involved. Now, most men know, and they probably grasped this from their earliest years in the school playground, that, when it comes to blows, fights don't stop until one of you is in no shape to do any damage to the other. The criteria mentioned seem a bit fuzzy to me. How can you convince a jury you were ready to try and talk your way out of it when the other person would have none of it and, besides, he was quick to land the first punch? Also, you can strike the first blow and still plead self-defense. Of course, you again have the problem of convincing people that the threat was so great that you had no alternative, apart from getting beaten up yourself. Reacting calmly and rationally to a perceived threat is not easy to do.
In small doses, stress can have quite a positive effect. It can make you feel more alive, even exhilarated. I suppose everyone has a set level at which stress becomes unbearable, at which point they cease to function properly. I suppose, too, that it's possible for someone to train themselves to be able to take higher levels of stress by repeatedly putting themselves in a stressful situation. To build up a tolerance for stress. Indeed, some jobs absolutely require this. But stress is a fact of life for all of us, and, as the figures show, its effect is largely negative. Each year, about 6 million people in Britain consult their doctors because they feel stress or anxiety, and it is estimated that at least another 6 million suffer from stress-related illness but do not seek medical advice. Long working hours, fear of losing their jobs, the difficult journey to and from work and crowded trains and buses all contribute to increased levels of stress. Then there are domestic problems, such as a large mortgage on the house, children who want to drop out of school and join rock bands, not enough time to spare to be with the family.
As I mentioned last week, we're going to look today at fiction writing stories, and in particular at authors who have a reputation for creating characters in their books who are known as unreliable narrators. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, originally, in the 19th century, it tended to simply mean that, as a reader, you just couldn't trust what the narrator of a story was telling you. This might have been because they were not giving you important information, or because they themselves as a character in their own story lacked some kind of personal insight. In later works of literature, this unreliability was used by authors more deliberately, with the direct intention of making a story more complicated for a reader to understand, perhaps a crime novel or a thriller. Nowadays, there's a lot more humor in unreliable narration, and it's often used to make first-person characters enjoyable to read about. So, what all that tells us as a general starting point is that this type of narration
This year we're planning to use a different type of assessment on this module. In the past, students were required to complete 2 long written assignments and also to do a presentation on a subject of their own choice. We have decided to ask you to write 4 shorter pieces of written coursework this year. We are also going to be more prescriptive about what you focus on in your presentation. This is because previously many students lost marks unnecessarily simply because
Let's say if I'm asking which source you often use to get information. Newspaper? Radio? TV? And the survey shows 62% of the people chose internet. You might be thinking I am going to say how important the internet is, or how quickly it has changed the world for a few years. But what if I tell you this survey is conducted on the website globalandmail.com? Our answer will be different because the people who did this survey on a website must be frequent users of internet. This sample is a biased sample. So we have to pay attention to how a survey is conducted.
Well, there are many factors that can cause one species to divide into 2. One of these is when populations get isolated from each other by something like a lake forming or forest being cleared. And there's another idea that as individuals adapt to their environment, this might have a knock-on effect on mate choice, a process called sensory-drive speciation. Now this seems to occur in cichlid fish. They have shown that a female preference for either red or blue striped males only exists in clear water, where they are actually able to see.
Radio is a popular form of entertainment throughout the world. Radio is a popular form of entertainment throughout the world. A good architecture should be usable, durable, and beautiful. A good architecture should be usable, durable, and beautiful. The celebrated theory is still the source of great controversy. The celebrated theory is still the source of great controversy. Students develop confidence in their ability to think critically. Students develop confidence in their ability to think critically.
I have scored 73 in my PTE in only 10 days.
I achieved my desired score just in 20 days.
My desired score.
Desired score.
My desired score. Desired PTE score.
Desired score. Desired score. Desired score.
Desired score.
अपना डिजायर स्कोर लैंग्वेज एकेडमी तो अचीव किया है।